Hey friends, welcome back to another video. I got Bobo's with me today. It's quite cold out, it's in the negatives. I think it's still like -1 or -2 and it's lunchtime. And our house is old. This house we're renting, it's been renovated, but the floors are still pretty chilly, you know, when it's -1 out. So Bobo wants to be held today, huh? Yeah. So a lot of you have actually asked me to do a follow-up video or have asked how we're doing since we left veganism. It's been, what, a year and a half ago now? You've been curious how my health is doing and how my children are doing and how the transition has been and if it's any easier to eat meat. Because if you've watched my previous videos, you know that it was really challenging in the beginning for me to start eating animal products again. I'll put the links for those up there. Did you see something outside? Yes? You're such a good protector. Yes, you are. You go protect us from the crows and the eagles and all the birds. Huh. So I thought I would do a video for all of you who've been wondering. Thank you for asking. And yeah, we're doing pretty great. Thank you for those of you who have reached out and have asked, you know, how we're doing. That means a lot. And also, Honey's in the background. Also, I'm really grateful for the love and compassion that my family has received on my videos where I'm leaving veganism. It definitely was a tricky transition and not an easy transition going from, you know, being vegan for 10 years, not just for the health benefits, or so I thought, health benefits, but also the ethical aspect of being vegan, right? I was hardcore vegan, and although I wasn't out protesting, I had very strong views about being vegan and not using any products from animals. Right, buddy? And here I am a year and a half later. I have eggs and meat in my fridge and freezer, and I can, I guess, compartmentalize, right? Which is something as a vegan that was always looked down upon. Like, how can you eat a chicken and have a pet dog, or in my case, a pet chicken? How can you do that? Right? Every life is a sentient being. You know, everything that lives wants to live, and will fight for survival and has feelings and emotions. Maybe not in the way that we do, but they obviously do, right? They have personalities and they feel pain. And none of my beliefs about that have changed. Just obviously my beliefs about how... Can you quit interrupting me? It's quite rude and I forget what I'm saying. Thank you. I have different beliefs on our position as humans. I don't think that I'm better than animals, but I do think that living on planet Earth equals pain and contrast, dark and light, and life and death. And as a vegan, I did talk about this. I know in my other videos, I talked about how I got really kind of overly sensitive to death. Like, I couldn't process death at all. I couldn't process even if I smashed a spider in my house on accident. Like, I would cry. Or if I saw an animal that had died, you know, on the side of the road by being hit by a car, I would like feel this gut punch and I would spiral. And it's not to say that that's wrong. It just got to be really anxiety causing for me. And I think that that's a side effect of being vegan. It like almost makes you hypersensitive, and it makes you run away from death instead of embracing and knowing that death is inevitable. Like, everything's going to die. We're going to die. We cause death, whether it's from, you know, a combine going across to harvest grain and it kills everything in its path, or killing your own family cow. There's death that's going to happen when you eat. And for me, I would much rather be raising the animals myself, knowing how they're being treated, what they're being fed, that they're loved, and that they had a great life, versus eating a bowl of carbohydrates that has used large factory farming to get it to my plate, and in that process has killed thousands of animals along the way, because there is no animal that's worth more than another. And so I still stand in that, I guess, conviction, and I feel amazing compared to where I was. And our family has had quite the journey in the last year. I mentioned in a couple of my previous videos that we had toxic mold in the house that we were living in. So not only, you know, was I dealing with the devastating health effects of being vegan for a long time, I also was living in toxic mold. Our whole family was. Don't eat my hair, please. Don't. I know you're shivering because it's so cold out. It's in the negatives. You would die outside. You wouldn't make it. Boba is a frizzle, so his feathers kind of stand up and go backwards, and like I can just feel his skin. Like he does not have much protective covering, and his little feet are, he's got deformed feet. But you manage. Anyway, our health was, especially mine, was really rough. It was rough for a while. But the moment that we moved out of the mold house, are you going to sleep now? Bulbs. You might alarm some people if you do that. It's very hard to stay focused when you have a rooster in your lap. Yes, it was really devastating on our health living in the toxic mold, and I think the veganism just kind of made it worse because my mental health was spiraling. I was having so much anxiety and anger and brain fog and just couldn't think straight anymore. My brain was malnourished, I fully believe. After going through 2 pregnancies being vegan and not really renourishing my body and not eating fat, I ate low fat for a long time being vegan. I tried all the different ways of veganism. I ate all different ways, but now I know that being vegan is a really dangerous road for a lot of women in particular, especially women who are having babies. And I know there are a handful of influencers out there, vegan influencers, who are having tons of babies and they seem fine, and maybe they will be fine. Maybe they will not be affected by it. Maybe their body is able to live on a vegan diet, and maybe there's multiple reasons why I couldn't. I do think that I had a kind of destroyed gut, and so I was probably malnourished a lot from not being able to absorb nutrients. And eating a vegan diet, a raw vegan diet, any type of vegan diet is just not great for those who suffer with gut problems. Even though we were living in this house with the toxic mold, which we weren't aware of at the time that it had toxic mold, but my children's health bounced back immediately after we left veganism. They started to get color in their cheeks and their eyes started to sparkle, and the dark circles under their eyes went away. Their skin looked good. They had more energy. They had less meltdowns, particularly for my youngest son. He used to have these epic, explosive meltdowns, which I thought was just his personality. But now I fear, that he was malnourished and his brain probably wasn't getting what it needed to grow and to be able to process emotions either. And I noticed being vegan that I was way more explosive more often. Like I just was more reactive. I was more angry. I would yell more. I was frustrated more. And that has changed a lot since I started incorporating healthy animal fats back into my diet and foods. And I don't want you to do whatever YouTube people say. Like I want you to do your own research, but I hope that this video can help you kind of encourage you and just make you feel not alone if you're dealing with transitioning from veganism and you're struggling with it. It doesn't bother me anymore. I eat meat every day. I usually have eggs every day. I get raw dairy from a local farm, and that doesn't bother me anymore. I can pretty much eat anything that I want without gut distress. I did mention in one of my last videos, I tend to stay away from grains right now just because I feel better when I don't eat grain. So I really just want this video to be a video of encouragement and support and compassion for those of you who are transitioning off of veganism, or you're thinking about leaving it, or vegetarianism. And I know it's hard. It's a mind trip. It's really challenging to break away from all the vegan beliefs that you probably have taken on during the time you've been vegan or vegetarian, especially the ethical beliefs, and also just meat is kind of gross. I talked about that too in one of my videos where I was really disgusted by it, and I've overcome that. Processing meat and cooking meat and all of that is really easy for me now. I am able to really look at it in a way of respect for the animal and also a way of fascination. I have plans in the future to learn how to butcher and harvest the animals that I want to raise on our farm. So I've talked to a local farmer here about teaching me how to process his ducks and chickens when he does it. I want to be there. I want to learn. I want to learn how to harvest any animal that I'm plan on eating. And that is something I know a lot of people can't do, and that's okay. If you can't do that, that's okay. I want to do it because I want to have a farm and I want to provide the most nutritionally dense food for my family and for my community. And I feel like I can't do that unless I really go through the process. And I know it will be hard. I worked at veterinary clinics for 10 years where it was our job to save animals from dying. I still saw a lot of animals die via euthanasia, but I never did it myself. And I want to honor the animal that I'm eating. I want to honor the animal's life, and I want to learn how to do it. I want to learn how to process an animal and preserve in every way possible to take that animal, whether it's a deer or a cow, from when it's alive to in my freezer. And part of that also comes from a place of wanting to be more self-sufficient and not depending on supermarkets and the government to provide my food for me. I also want to honor the seasons. We live in Wisconsin now, so it's cold here and it's winter, and being vegan, if you really think about it, is not a feasible thing for someone who lives in the cold like this. Someone who lives in the cold and who wants to honor where they live and eat seasonally and eat locally. I'm not going to be eating bananas in the winter here. I'm not going to eat bananas really at all if I'm honoring kind of the local idea of eating. It's not to say I'm not going to buy a banana at the grocery store. I'm saying that I want to try to become as self-sufficient as possible and depend on the seasons, honor the seasons, and feed my family through local food. So when there's fruit, during the summer, spring, summer, and fall, that's when we'll have fruit. And during the winter, we'll depend on other food stores that we have, and we'll probably eat higher fat, and we'll probably eat more meat. And I'm not going to get into a whole nutritional video about honoring that cycle. I think humans have really lost touch with their food, of course, but they've also lost touch with where they live and what grows where they live, right? We're eating mangoes that come all the way from Mexico and food that comes from China. Like, so much I've just learned of the organic food at a lot of the higher end organic grocery stores, I won't say the name, are being flown in from China, where they're being stamped as organic, but they really haven't even been tested if they're organic or certified organic because of the country where they're coming from. So my point is, the healthiest thing that you can do for yourself is to eat locally and to support your local farmer. That's kind of where I'm striving to be. One of the other questions that you've asked is, how was the transition for my children? Was it difficult? And I may have touched on this in the previous video, but my older son in particular was so happy and excited to be leaving the vegan lifestyle. He had always wanted to fish and hunt and eat meat. No matter how many times I sat with him and told him that animals are sentient beings and gave him the vegan spiel, he wasn't about it. Like, he would stop questioning me. After a while, he kind of just let it go, but he was never proud of being vegan. It wasn't his choice to be vegan. That's really what it broke down to. And I couldn't understand it, because you see these vegan videos and memes where they're, it's a little girl or boy crying because they realize that their chicken on their plate is a live chicken, was a chicken, and they're devastated, or they're eating the steak and they realize it's a cow, and they're like, I never want to eat animals. And there's this idea that if you give a child a lamb, that it won't be tempted to slaughter it, right? It'll be tempted to cuddle it. Well, I think that that's cherry picking something. And also I think that that's incorrect. I've actually known a few children who were like gung-ho about helping their parents slaughter, prepping the meat, cooking, getting it ready. Like, they don't have that. It's not to say that there aren't kids like that are incredibly compassionate, because my younger one is like that. But my older one was not. He's all gung-ho about it. He wants to go hunting. He's gone fishing. He loves it, all about it. And he enjoys eating everything. He tries everything that we bring that's new to him. He had no issues whatsoever. He had no issues with the texture. He had no issues with cooking it with me. He had none whatsoever. He was fascinated with it, actually. He would ask in the early days when I was still kind of grossed out about cutting meat. He would ask to do it for me. He enjoyed doing it. So he could grow up to be a butcher, for all I know. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. My younger son, on the other hand, has taken longer to transition. For him, it's, I think, more of a texture thing at this point than the ethical aspect of veganism. That was hard for him at first, but not for very long. Like, maybe a month or so he would comment on it. But it was more a texture thing. Like, we would go out and he'd say, well, I really miss eating veggie burgers. And to this day, he honestly will still prefer a veggie burger. He eats pretty standard American child things now. Like, he likes chicken nuggets, he likes corn dogs, and he likes hot dogs. He's not a fan of lunch meat. He's not a fan of like any type of meat just kind of slapped onto a plate. So like taco meat, he'll eat in a burrito or tacos, and lasagna, he eats it if it's kind of hidden, which I think is just kind of a standard child thing. Other than that, it hasn't been too much of an issue. So I would say for any of you who might be struggling with children who are really sensitive and who don't want to consume animal products whatsoever, but they need to, or you think they need to, I think just communicating is key, and maybe even taking them to a local farm where the farmer takes care of their animals and can kind of walk your child through the process of what that looks like, right? If you take your child to a factory farm, of course it's going to be horrific. And all of us that have been vegan and have transferred away from that are trying to buy from local farmers. We're not supporting factory farming ever. Like, it's not like we go back to that. So I think that's really important to keep having that conversation with your child. And I think to have the conversations, the tough conversations about death and how everything dies. And when something dies and it gives back nourishment, that is something to really honor and to pray for and give thanks for. So that's how my kids are doing. They're both thriving health-wise. They're growing. They've kind of thickened out a little bit. My oldest son struggled a lot with anxiety like I did, and his anxiety is almost zero now. He'll still have some episodes, like the occasional moment when we're in a crowd of people, like he doesn't like crowds very much, where it might surface. It's not the way that it used to be. He would have like these fits of rage and anger and just lash out and was uncontrollable. Like he couldn't calm down. He couldn't regulate himself. Like I mentioned, my younger one couldn't regulate himself. And that's where I've really noticed a huge jump, just their mental health since we started eating animal products again. Also, I think that they're able to concentrate longer when we do school. That could be an age thing, but I can't rule it out. And our health overall just tends to be so much better. And I'm still sensitive to mold. When we moved out of the mold house in Arizona, we threw out probably more than half of our belongings and just kept the things that we could clean, or the absolute necessity things that I wanted to try and, save, like paintings that my mom did when she was alive, when I was younger. Like, I don't know how I'm going to clean those, but I was not going to get rid of them. And so we still have stuff in storage, and occasionally my husband who's still going back and forth from Arizona to here, will ship things from the storage unit, and I still react to them. So I don't know what we're going to do about those things. I'm just kind of putting that aside right now because there's nothing I can do about it in the moment. I think when we do transfer our stuff here, we'll just wait till the summer when we can literally unload it all out into the lawn and let it bake in the sun, and we will clean it. We'll wipe it down with cleaner, let it air dry, and then move it into the house, whatever we can salvage. So in saying that, my health has been great though. I had some flare-ups during the move of joint pain because I was eating a lot of sugar and just a lot of junk. You know how stressful moves can be, and the fact that we were displaced from the whole mold fiasco. For a while, we were living in an Airbnb for a couple months while we figured out where we were going to live. And so there was a lot of stress and unknown that was happening, and that of course taxes your body. But once we got here and got settled, I started eating keto diet. Keto and carnivore is mostly what I do. Right now in the middle of winter, I have no cravings for fruit whatsoever. Every once in a while, I'll have some blueberries, like in a muffin, like a GAPS recipe muffin that I make or something like that right now, but I'm not eating any fruit. And it's so funny because that's all I ate for off and on for years, right? There was periods of time where I was eating so much fruit, like fruit all day, and then a huge salad with rice, like the 10 banana smoothies, or giant green smoothies with like 5 bananas and mangoes, and like so much fruit. And I have now pivoted, or like swung to the other side where I don't want fruit at all. And the interesting thing is that I don't crave it, I don't want it, and if I eat too much fruit and sugar, it doesn't matter, I have blood sugar spikes. So that's something that I have noticed since leaving veganism. I had crazy blood sugar issues that I really wasn't that aware of. I started to notice how much more even keeled my mood was once I kind of stopped eating so many carbs. And this is coming from someone who did the medical medium diet, and I did high carb, low fat diet. I just did everything at one point. I did try at one point doing a keto vegan diet, which is near impossible unless you eat a ton of processed meats, which I couldn't eat because so many of the processed meats are full of gluten. Plus it's just processed. So I tried it all. I really did. And I struggled so hard to eat low fat and was never able to really successfully do it for a long period of time. Oh, I gotta put you down, buddy. So when I initially started introducing animal meat, animal fats, especially animal fats, the change was next level. The cognitive change that I had, being satiated, was huge, and just not having these crazy blood sugar spikes up and down. I wasn't hungry every 5 minutes like I had been when I was vegan. Like I was just super even killed, could think better. I wasn't kind of consumed with, okay, when's my next meal? When am I going to eat? I could eat a breakfast and then I would be good for a few hours until lunch, and then I would be good until dinner. It was amazing to me, the difference, and it happened instantly. Like once my body kind of shifted over to eating more meat and fat, and I kind of accidentally fell into ketosis, I noticed like, wow, I can go a long time without eating, and I just feel amazing. So that was one of the biggest things that I've noticed. I tend to mostly eat keto right now, and I combine that with fasting a couple times a month. On a Sunday, I will fast for as long as I can. I'll just have a little bit of tea in the morning, and I try to go as long as I can, so 20, even to 24 hours. I've hit 21 hours at this point. I have not hit a full 24 hours, but I'm easing into fasting, because fasting was something I never could successfully do being vegan. I would get super shaky and angry and feel super lightheaded, like I was gonna pass out, because my blood sugar was all over the place. And I've noticed now, being keto, especially if I make sure I'm in ketosis before Sunday when I decide to fast, it's so much easier to fast. Like I don't get the weird blood sugar issues, I don't get headaches, I don't get the shakes. My stomach might rumble, but I can kind of like, if I have some electrolytes or just a little tea, I can kind of push through a little bit longer. And I've noticed that fasting has been amazing for me to heal any inflammation I still had left over my body from the mold. And yeah, that's really helping me. I feel great. I feel amazing. It's not hard for me to cook meat anymore. I got over it. So for those of you who are concerned about that, or you're really struggling, just stick with it and know that it does get easier. It definitely is a mental mindset shift, and you have to talk to yourself about it. You have to speak lovingly to yourself. You have to give yourself patience. And for me, it helped to go and like expose myself to things that were hard to look at. I watched videos of Joel Salatin processing meat birds. I listened to podcasts of butchers and meatsmiths so that I can really understand more what happens in the process of a slaughter and what happens in the process of like from that point to getting the meat on your table. And the battery died. I think that's it. It gets easier, I promise. And you'll even start to really enjoy the way that you're eating. Actually, that's something I wanted to touch on, is the freedom. There's so much more freedom with your life when you leave veganism. I used to tell myself that I had plenty of choices and it wasn't restrictive at all, but really it is so restrictive being vegan. You know that it is. It's restrictive in the way that you shop for clothing and shoes. It's restrictive in the way that you eat. It's restrictive when you go out to eat. It's restrictive when you're in social settings. Like that's why vegans want to hang out with other vegans, because it makes it so much easier. Now my life is just, there's so much more joy in my life, not having to be so restrictive. It's not to say that I don't, like I said, honor local farms. It's not that I'm buying from factory farms. Like I'm very intentional with the meat that we buy, and we spend more than other people do to get high quality meat, but we're not spending any more than we did actually being vegan. We actually spent more money when we were eating vegan. I'm able to buy in bulk more now with meat and with eggs, and we're eating less. Like overall, we just eat less. So our grocery bills probably dropped $300 or $400 a month, if you can believe it. It's insane. So that's another benefit people don't really talk about. They say that eating vegan is cheaper or easier, and maybe if you eat lentils and rice every day, I don't know. Even that seems crazy. The amount of produce that you have to buy. And like here, if I want to get a organic head of lettuce, it's like $5 in the winter. $5 for one head of organic lettuce. I'm like, I'll pass. I'm good, thanks. Because that one head of lettuce wouldn't even, it's like, 20 calories. What's it going to do? It wouldn't last me. And so, yeah, I think overall everything is really good. I think if you are transitioning, it's important to focus locally. It's important to meet your farmers. They're struggling no matter where they are, and they need your support. I think that it's important to eat healthy as you transition too.
and to eat most of your food at home. When you prepare your food at home, it's just so much better for you, and it's better mentally for you as well. It's also going to get you over that hump of the fear of handling meat and eating meat. I don't know, I kind of just dove in right when I transitioned, just kind of threw myself into it because I knew I needed to eat it for my health, and I had to just get over it. So I had to have some hard conversations with myself. If you have any other questions about this, please put it in the comments below. I'm happy to do another video on this and touch on it. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any other questions in regards to transitioning from veganism, or for your kids, or I don't know, anything on this topic, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments below. If you are vegan, do not troll. Probably should have put a no vegan trolling disclaimer at the beginning of this video. Maybe I will. It's not going to do anybody any good if you try to write hurtful things and hateful things. And isn't that against your vegan moral code as it is? I've been really grateful actually for the amount of loving and compassionate comments that I have received, and I'm really happy to know that my leaving veganism videos have helped so many people, helped them not feel alone, helped them to transition, helped them to know that they're not crazy with the symptoms they're dealing with. Like that's a really amazing part of this platform, and I love to keep my comment section loving and compassionate like it's been. If you have any other questions, let me know and I'd be happy to answer them for you. All right, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.